Good evening and welcome to session 4 of our candidate training series. This one is on campaign managers. At the top, let me apologize. I think that I incorrectly listed the starting time on this webinar at 7 p.m. Obviously, it was 7:30, so I think some of you have probably been waiting quite some time for this. My apologies. Anyway, moving on, we have a great topic tonight. That's campaign managers. If candidates provide the soul of a campaign and the field managers or the field directors and volunteer managers provide the boots on the ground and the operating um, team, it's really the campaign manager that provides the strategy. They're the person who figures out that win number and then figures out the plan to get to that win number and oversees all the arms of the campaign. And so I think this is a really important topic, and we have a great campaign manager to speak with us tonight. First, I'm going to hand this off. Our usual moderator, Keith Ribnick, isn't with us tonight. Filling in for him is Teresa Brandon, who is a deputy chair of the 4th District for Candidate Services. It's really Teresa that has led the effort to get all of these webinars and training materials put together. It might have been my idea, but it was definitely her hard work that made this happen. And so, if anyone should take credit for tonight and the last 3 series and the remaining 4 that we still have to come, it's Teresa. So, Teresa, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. It's been my pleasure to work with you in the district. So good evening, everyone. We want to give you a couple of quick announcements right off before we begin with Mike. If anybody has any questions this evening, please use the Q&A feature, and we will answer the questions after the presentation. By doing this, this will allow us to capture your question before the Q&A segment, so you don't have to sit there and keep trying to remember what it is you wanted to ask. Go ahead and put it in the Q&A, and we'll get to that as soon as the presentation is done. We will be sending out a copy of tonight's presentation to you via email in the next few days. Matt will be doing that. If anyone has any questions that are not covered by the webinar, you can always email Matt at chair@in4blue.com. So I want to introduce tonight's presenter. Mike Oles III has managed several transformative issue-based and candidate campaigns. He's organized unions, healthcare fights, political campaigns, and transformative environmental campaigns. After becoming disgruntled with Indianapolis politics, Mike helped lead a major ecological campaign that led to the end of coal burning in Marion County. In 2015, Mike led the Jarrett Evans campaign to victory for the city council, which led to the end of a Republican gerrymander and the beginning of the Democratic supermajority. Mike's wins as a campaign manager in 2015, 2018, and 2022 led to the Marion County Democratic Party ending its unfair slating process during primaries. Mike's organizing work has appeared in many publications, including the New York Times, Boston Globe, San Francisco Chronicle, the American Prospect, New Yorker, Indianapolis Star, NBC News, and in the book American Made: What Happens to People When Work Disappears. So without further ado, I want to turn this evening's presentation over to Mike Oles. Thank you, Mike, for your efforts tonight.
Thank you, Teresa. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Mike Oles. I am live in the 4th District and right on the Brownsburg, Zionsville, Whitestown border, but on the Brownsburg side. So it's awesome to be here organizing in my home community. And, I live in District 25, which is where Democrats will win next year. And my daughter will vote for the first time in that district. And I would have never imagined that the district I grew up in will be represented by a Democrat. And so excited about that. I'm excited about the road ahead for Democrats across Indiana, even though right now it seems a little bleak. But before the sunrise, there is a little bit of darkness. So if you would, let's share my screen and we'll get started tonight. And Teresa, are you good to share it?
I now have the presentation up on the screen.
Oh, I'm not seeing it.
Matt, is it up there?
No, you need to, down at the bottom, there's a green button that says share. At the bottom of WebEx. I'm sorry, Zoom, whatever platform we're on.
Okay. I apologize. I thought I had that up there.
There we go.
How's that?
That's good. Yeah.
All right. So sorry.
Great. Yeah. And I don't know if you can put that, there we go. So again, everybody, awesome to be here tonight. And this is something that being a campaign manager is something, you know, that I've been doing off and on since probably in high school when I ran for past president. And I saw that I could win and beat the popular kid, and I did. So, the role of a campaign manager is very simple, but very complex to pull off. The role of a campaign manager, as the sign says, is to get people to the polls. As your whole job, getting people to go vote and vote for your person. All right, next slide, Teresa. So I wanted to start off with a quote. This is a quote from Paul Wellstone, who tragically passed away in a kind of a weird airplane accident in 2002. And Paul Wellstone was, imagine sort of Bernie Sanders before Bernie Sanders. He was sort of the progressive outsider looking to change things up in the 1990s in American politics. And his campaign managers wrote this about what it means to be a campaign manager. Every campaign needs a manager, along with a team of people who keep focused on the goals, work the plan, and help the candidate be at their very best every day. A well-functioning team with a person in charge operates with clearly defined jobs, measurable goals, and a problem-solving attitude. And I thought that summed up, I think, pretty well what it means to be a campaign manager. And this quote, I think, really sums up why we all want to do politics. So this is from the senator. We all do better when we all do better. And before I get going, I want to tell a story about Paul Wellstone. In 1998, I was part of I applied to be a political organizer intern with a group called the New Party. And they were working inside the Democratic Party against urban political machines, trying to get progressive candidates elected at the local level. And Paul Wellstone, no, this is my first week on the job, and Paul Wellstone is at this conference, and he's asking these young people in their 20s and early 30s to run his presidential campaign in the year 2000. That that he could that he thought he had a pathway to victory. And if these young, super smart, outside the box thinker campaign managers would run his campaign, they might have a shot. And pull up an upset in the primary against Al Gore. And they turned him down. They said they weren't ready. The movement they're building was just starting. We had to take our time to make it happen. So they actually turned Paul Wellstone down. And I always wonder, what would have happened if this campaign managers in 1998, didn't act in a humble way and acted, hey, let's do it. Let's go for it. What do we have to lose? And I think, history might have been a little bit different. And, Paul Wellstone was probably the fiercest critic of the George Bush administration, W. Bush administration, and the Iraq War, and a true hero. So we all do better when we all do better. And that's a great quote to guide your political career life. Next slide. And then just one more story as we get going. I love this picture. On the left is Jared Evans, who's one of my best friends and a city council member that I ran his campaign in 2015. In 2011, he got slaughtered in the race. In 2015, I ran this race. We won by 250 votes. We had to we had to defeat the Democrat establishment in the primary, and then we had to beat a 10-year incumbent in the primary. I mean, in the general election, and we pulled off a big victory, flipped the city council that night, on and on. And on the right is a guy named Greg Kassar. Does anybody know who he is? My best friend for Brownsburg High School was working as an organizer in Austin, Texas, and hired this young guy named Greg Kassar to help organize a campaign around union rights and worker rights and construction in Austin, Texas. And my buddy goes, "This Greg Kassar, he is an amazing guy. I'm going to help him run for city council." And he gave him his first maxed out donations, and they got him elected to Austin City Council. And this is in 2017, both as young city council members, which really wasn't that long ago. But now Greg Kassar is in Congress, United States Congress. He's going to be one of the 5 Democrats left in Congress for Texas the next election. And Jared is probably, one of the best Indianapolis City Council members. And at 40 years old, he's the third or fourth most senior member of the Democratic caucus on the city council. So not bad for a couple kind of amateur campaign managers 10 years ago thinking, hey, we know these great guys, they should run for office and see what happens. And that's why I love politics. And that's why I love this work, because if you keep at it, keep digging away, who knows what happens, right? And so that's why I really like this work and like the work of a campaign manager. Next slide, please. Sorry, Teresa's not flipping yet.
Well, it's not behaving. I hit the thing twice. Okay. Let me stop share and I'll reshare again.
Okay. So yeah, in the next slide is really about just what it means to be a campaign manager and your three main responsibilities. If you go to slide 4, please.
There we go.
Three main responsibilities as a campaign manager. First one is, working with a candidate, you are creating and upholding a theory of change and a plan to win with a budget attached to it, right? So number one, you have a theory of winning, a theory of change, and you have the plan to win and the money to win. Number 2 is creating and upholding a winning staff. That includes both volunteers and paid staff. And number 3, creating and upholding a positive workspace. Campaigns are intense. They can go downhill pretty quick, and you can rebound pretty quick. And it's a matter of always keeping eyes on the prize and keeping a positive workspace. And as we've seen in Indianapolis, a safe workplace. Everybody has a safe, positive workplace to hopefully pull off a big win for the community and for progressive politics. Next slide. So as we get going, I want to talk about the theory of change and a win number. But I'm going to start with the win numbers. And the name says itself. A win number is basically the number, your best estimate of the number of votes you need to win. And with Jared Evans back in 2015, when we were calculating that win number and doing the research, in 2011 he got beat by 20 points. When we started comparing the numbers, and the district was inching closer and closer to Democrats, and the Republicans had gerrymandered the city council, and so they made his district less Republican. And then we're like, oh, maybe we got a shot here. And we did. We calculated the win number. We actually won by 250 votes that night, which was, a lot, in a district that was 55% Republican. And it was all about, running a plan, having a win number, and just keeping positive when things look bleak, even sometimes you had big arguments, within your own party. So that win number is easily calculable. There's online, there's a win number that you can calculate, use an app. And basically there's take the last 3 elections, do an average, do some guesstimating, and come up with that number. Next slide, please. That win number should be on your wall. It should guide everything you have. So now so that's like the basic part. In organizing and in politics in general, you'll hear this term called theory of change. And this is a quote from Marshall Gantz, who is just a real jewel of a human being. He was a part of Obama's brain trust, teaches at Harvard now, just a deep thinker and a lovely person who just writes very smart things. And um, and so he writes a theory of change, how to get from here, which is a moment of uncertainty, to where we need to be, which is winning. So how do we take in this moment, where we have no power or or looking at some big goal ahead of us, how do we use the time in between now and election or whatever it is to win? How do we get there? What's the plan? And and uh and electoral politics is pretty easy, right? And community campaigning it gets a little bit more complex. But and so I'm kind of using this as District 25 numbers in in uh in the Whitestown Zionsville district that I know Eric is here, and other folks might be from that district. And this is would be like something that the Tiffany Center campaign would use. If we garner more than 18,800 votes in District 25, our candidate will win. And this will provide us with 50% of the votes in the election, right? So when you think about your win number, just plug it into this theory of change, right? If we garner more than X amount of votes in our district, our candidate will win, as this will provide us with over 50% of the votes in the election. So it's and electoral politics is pretty easy. I was actually up in Elkhart, Indiana today. We were talking about working on a big campaign to change the RV industry and change its practices. And that's a lot more complicated theory of change, but electoral politics is very easy to just have that win number is all you got to start with. And in his book, Marshall Gantz, talks about strategy and tactics, and he talks about the origin of these words. In ancient Greece, the general was called the person leading strategos, and the soldiers were called takikos. Sorry, my ancient Greek is probably awful. But strategy, you go up to the hill, you survey the battlefield, and then you get your soldiers to follow a plan to win, right? And so in a campaign, as a campaign manager, you're kind of that person up on the hill, and then you're trying to get all the other parts in motion as tactics to go out and win a political campaign or election. So next slide, please. So that's sort of the theory, right? But now let's put this to a calendar and put this to a deeper test. And as you're campaigning, you need a plan to win. And something you need that's very basic is just every date that's important to your campaign. In Indiana, we know that we know when the primary day is and the general election day, first Tuesday in May and first Tuesday in November. If they don't fall on the first day of the month, and then it kicks to if Tuesday doesn't fall on the first day of the month, and then it kicks to the 8th, the Tuesday the 8th. We know that there's filing deadlines that we've got to follow. That if you're running for office in the primary, you need to be on, you need to file the run between late January and early February, normally between Martin Luther King Day and Valentine's Day. Your early voting dates, an election when people can start voting. And so you want to know when people can start voting at the courthouse, and then when other sites open up in the county, which is normally 2 weeks before the election starts. So that, in Hendricks County, I think you can start voting at the courthouse, 30 days before the election date, and then they'll open up satellite sites at different libraries and sites 2 weeks before the election, and those lines can be very long. So, you know, uh, I always recommend trying to vote early, especially during the presidential election before the lines just get outrageously long. Um, for Tiffany Stoner, 2024, I waited, I think, in about 2.5 hours in line to vote that day. Um, uh, know your campaign finance filing dates also. So as a campaign manager, you're going to file with the state, with the clerk's office, um, or the state, depending on what office you're running for, uh, campaign finance reports. And there's a rhythm to that also. There's at the end of the year, in January, the years previous uh, um, reports are due. Then you have a pre-primary report, which is about 3 weeks before the primary election. Then you have, I think you might have a pre. I should know this. You have a pre election in October filing date, and you might be, and then also you'll have an end of the year filing date again. So there's campaign finance reports that your candidate wants to be on top of. If you don't fill them out right, if you do it in a poor way, it can cause major headaches. So have that on your calendar. And then something else to really think about is the absentee ballots, which we'll probably talk about that more in a different seminar. But an absentee ballots, they kind of have their own rhythm to them, and they start getting mailed out. Applications start getting turned in, kind of off kilter from when the early voting begins, and so you'll want to have the whole absentee ballot strategy and calendar mapped out so that you can chase those absentee ballots, and that even kind of starts before the 30-day window for early voting. And so, yeah, just know all your deadlines and just get them all marked out on the calendar. Probably a paper calendar and a Google calendar, so you can just have those dates memorized and kind of build your campaign around. But next slide, please. I want to go now into uh, the different phases of the campaign. So those are sort of the technical dates. But as I'm thinking about running a campaign, I want to think about the 5 different stages of campaign life and the life of the campaign. So is uh, number one is your pre-launch period. So this is before the deadline and before you announce that you're going to run for office. So this can be different from the second phase, or about the same, or they can kind of have a merge a little bit together. But before you run for office in your pre-launch phase, you want to get everything organized. You want to get your graphics, your website, your messaging, your plan, all the details, your budget. Maybe do some early fundraising. You kind of want to have the whole structure of your campaign set up before you officially launch your campaign. And that's not always easy. And a lot of times, you're going back and reorganizing and reimagining and redoing things that didn't work out of the gate. But you want to, especially you can't have a really strong pre-launch. And then number two, this is your launch, right? Now this can be before the filing deadline, like you said earlier, but it can be far earlier. Like if you're going to run for office and want to give yourself, 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months, a year ahead of time that you're going to run for office, that's fine. That just means that you're out public now as a candidate, and you just want to make sure your pre-launch looks good, so that when you launch, you're looking impeccable, that you have all your stuff together, that you're organized. And some people kind of wait till the filing deadline to announce they're going to run, and some people, announce a year ahead of time. So this pre-launch and launch kind of, as I said, can intersect with each other and really play off each other. So let's go to the next slide, please. So then your third phase is your outreach and your persuasion phase. This is before anybody can vote. So on the timeline, this means you've launched, people can't vote yet. So you just want to get out there in an organized way as possible and just move people to your side. You want to just be out there talking to voters in a very organized way. You want to, hopefully your campaign gains momentum. You just want to, you just want to be out in the public, just reaching out to as many voters as possible. And that can be through a whole different, and we'll talk about it later, a whole different group of tools and tactics. But that's your outreach and persuasion time. In a perfect campaign, which there's hardly any perfect campaign, you're not, by the time you're done with section 3, phase 3, that means that you've already over communicated with your voters to the point where they know who you are, they like you, they want to vote for you. You have enough time to reach out to low turnout voters. You have a chance to maybe bring new voters into the fold. But you've run such a great operation that once the early voting starts and once the absentee ballot chases, you're straight into get out the vote time. You've identified all your supporters. You know that they vote, you're going to win, and you're going to work to build high turnout. And I thought the Tiffany Stoner campaign did a great job on this. Um, and they did such a good job is that I was phone banking for her one day, and we were just calling the most low propensity voters because everybody else had been contacted so many times, and they could track when you vote. So once you vote, you stop getting phone calls, right? And that night, that election night, I was out working the campaign all day, so I didn't vote until 5:35 or 5:45. And I was getting calls in line at 5 o'clock, like, "What the hell, Mike? Why haven't you voted yet? What are you doing? Get to the polls!" And I was in line. The lines are crazy that day, and but that team knew that I hadn't voted yet. And if I didn't vote, that was gonna be a big problem. Um, and so that was just an awesome way to kind of imagine you get out the vote, that you're so organized that at 5:30, they know that you haven't voted yet and you better get to vote. And then on number 5, sort of your post-election day, and election day party, right? You celebrate or mourn, but you've done everything you can, right? You celebrate, you rest, you analyze, and you gear up again, hopefully. And uh, and so as we think about just the technical dates of the campaign, and then matching that with these phases, and you can break these phases out into other sections. But I think those are ways I would approach breaking up a calendar and a plan is pre-launch, launch, outreach and persuasion, get out the vote, and then lastly your post-election day analysis, and hopefully uh, you're recovering from a night of winning and getting ready for the next phase of your life. So let's go. Let's go to our second topic here, which is you got your plan to win, and now what you really need is a great staff to help you implement this. So next slide, Teresa. Um, and so first to do that, to have a staff, you're going to need some money, right? And so this is kind of a bridge actually between the plan to win and and uh, and the staff. So that campaigning and politics can get very expensive, and each campaign though is very different. And so to win the state rep race in a competitive environment, I'm pretty sure you're going to need at least $300,000 to win a race these days, at a state rep race. And I know some Republicans, they spend over $1 million on state rep races right now. They're so flush with corporate cash that they can spend $1 million and not even think about it. And for Democrats, I think if you can spend 300K in a competitive race, you're going to have a good shot to win. Like a school board race can be different. We were talking to somebody who ran for Plainfield School Board, and they won with less than $5,000 in the bank. And look, the first time I won a city council race in Indianapolis, I think you raised less than $10,000, right? So you don't always need a lot of money, but sometimes the dynamics change. In Indianapolis, a school board race used to cost $5,000. Now it's over $100,000. And that's because the charter school industry and folks who want to privatize education have just started investing gobs and gobs of money in charter school races. So so things can change, and I think the charter school industry will come for the suburbs here, and so you'll all of a sudden a sleepy race can get very expensive. And then lastly, as you come up with your budget, I think you just want to have a very solid understanding of what fair pricing is for your campaign tools and your materials. And there's some folks around who can probably get you the best rates for yard signs or for texting or for or t-shirts or whatever you need. And you just might need somebody to help you guide you on that, because I know sometimes people are paying way over for yard signs, and there's some cheap places that can get you a union printed yard sign at a fair price. So coming up with a budget is something that you're going to need to do to bridge your gap from going from theory of change to winning to now hiring and developing your staff. Next slide, please. Um, and then again, as we're thinking about the budget, I'm flipping around here a little bit. As you look at your budget, you want to think about three different scenarios that you need um, money wise. So let's imagine you're running on a campaign and you just can't raise money, right? For whatever reason, the money's not there. You only have 10% of what you fully need. So plan for that, right? Worst case scenario. I think the plan for like a better scenario, like you can get half the way there. Or you can get the 50% of what you need money wise. You're somewhat funded the campaign, not perfect. And these are a lot of campaigns I worked on where I'm like, man, if we had, I mean, I remember pitching somebody, hey, if you give us $85,000, we'll win this race. And we got $0 from that group, and we still won. But we went from trying to have a fully funded budget to having a broke budget. And then were able to raise enough money to be somewhat funded. And then the fully funded campaign, right? That is where you have everything you need, and maybe you even have too much, so you can be very generous with your funds and supporting your volunteers and your staff. For instance, when I was back in 1998, I was a student at Earlham College, and we were campaigning for Julia Carson, and she had a lot of money in a race that knew she was probably going to win. So we would go knock doors, and then she would actually invite us over to her house and feed us and hang out with us. And so, it's pretty cool when your campaign really treats as volunteers, especially as young volunteers, feeds them, cherishes time with them, and so if you can be that type of campaign like Julia Carson was to me in 1998, please do that. Next slide, please. And then if you build your budget, uh, you need to think about a couple different categories. And I'll have a spreadsheet I created that I'll share with everybody on how to do this. But you're gonna want to have a budget for your staffing and your contractors. That's basically the money to hire people. You want to have a budget for operations, which is basically the money you need you know, to run your campaign, uh, from travel to logistics to food to whatever, right? So you need an operations budget, and then you need a print budget. That basically means anything that you can buy or get from a mail house. That's mail, that's printing, that's signs. Basically, if you want to communicate with your voters through the old-fashioned print medium, you'll want a budget for that. And then the internet and digital advertising and texting is a huge thing. So you want a budget for digital communications. So that's anything that from texting to ads online to a website. You want money for digital communications. And then lastly, if you are fully operationalized and funded, you want a budget for TV and radio. And I've been on the radio a couple times. I've never been on TV with a candidate. So that's a little bit beyond my wheelhouse. But if you get on the radio a little bit and you can just communicate with people on 5 or 6 mediums, it just makes things a lot easier on election day. Next slide. And so I created a sample budget here, and this is a budget that I'll share with people, and it breaks down your low, medium, and high budget, and by category and by priority. I'll share that with people, but it's just you want to put everything that you're gonna have to spend money on into a spreadsheet, organize it, track it, and make every dollar count, because every dollar needs to count if you're going to win a tough race. And this is something that I created a couple weeks ago, just trying to get my thoughts in order. But I found it very helpful. This is how much the yard sign costs. This is how much a text message costs. This is how much a billboard costs. This is how much a union printed T-shirt costs. So I have this for people, and I'm happy to share it in the email that goes out explaining the campaign, or explaining this presentation. Okay, next slide, please. So now I want to switch back to campaign staff. I've been kicked out of about 10 Trump rallies in my life, and part of my job campaigning was that we started following Donald Trump on the campaign trail. You see this picture on the left. You see Trump up there on stage. This is in Wheeling, West Virginia, and there's 2 guys with those T-shirts on. One's UAW, Union Auto Workers, and the other is Stop the War on Workers. Both those guys were laid off auto workers in Lordstown, Ohio, about 90 miles up the road. And Trump had gone to Youngstown and Lordstown and said, "Don't sell your house. Jobs are coming back. We're going to fix the economic problems of Northeast Ohio." And then Trump gets elected. They all vote for him, and then he loses. They lose their jobs. 5,000 people lost their job. So we were. This is our second day on the tour, following them around, and we got that close to Trump. And I remember that day, we were yelling at him, shouting at him while he was giving a speech. He points at us. He's confused by us. And then afterwards, this big 6'8" guy comes up to us, and he's here on the right, and it's Brad Parcell, who is Donald Trump's campaign manager. He's like, "What are you guys doing? Like, who are you? Like, why are you here?" He was so confused at first about what we were doing, and then he talked to us for a while, gave us his business card. I'd never heard of him. Googled him, and then the next rally we were at in Erie, Pennsylvania, he had us all kicked out pretty quickly. So, but we followed him around the Midwest after that. So there's good campaign managers, and Brad Purcell was a very good campaign manager for Donald Trump, but an awful campaign manager for America. And he actually ends up having a mental breakdown and going through some pretty tough spells there. So you want to do this for the good reasons, not for the bad reasons as you campaign. Next slide, please. So as you staff up your campaign, there's a lot of roles you can have. But these are, and a lot of these, if you're in a low funded or no funded campaign, a lot of these will be the candidate themselves. But the more people you get helping, more volunteers you get, more paid people you get, the more you can do as a candidate. So if you're doing this as a candidate, you might want to really think about really focusing on volunteers or paying somebody to help you out, because it becomes way too much. And then you don't have enough time or energy to go out and actually do the hard work of door-to-door campaigning or door-to-door combat. So you have your candidate, and then you have the campaign manager, which we're talking about right now. You have your fundraiser or your finance director, the person that's going to help you raise the money to run your plan. You have your communications director, which is going to help you deliver your message that is in your plan and send you through your change. You have your field director or your volunteer coordinator. That person is going to help you. make your campaign real in the field. So you're out talking to voters as much as possible and really delivering your message to voters personally. And then you have your treasurer, which I also would call compliance. The treasurer who does the filing, does the accounting, make sure that you're that you got your paperwork all together. So those are some main campaign roles, and those should be broken up, moved around, reimagined. But those are pretty basics to a campaign. Next slide, please. Um, and as a campaign manager, you want to be organized to win. And and tonight, this is really, I think, what we're getting to the heart of. You want to have organized ideas. You want to be organized on how you're going to win, your idea of winning, your theory of change, your win number. You want to be organized on your public policy statements and your vision for a community life, right? So you want to be very clear on your ideas, very organized. You want to be organized people that your campaign and your volunteers and your staff know what they're doing. They're organized. They have a plan. They are executing it. And then as a campaign manager, you want to make sure your money is organized. Every dollar counts, and you are organizing money to flow into your campaign so you can win and hopefully change the world, if not your district or your community. So as a campaign manager, organize ideas, organize people, organize money means you're gonna be organized to win. So keep that in mind as you in everything you do as a campaign manager. And if you're feeling disorganized, and a lot of times I feel very disorganized, always come back to trying to just, going back to the fundamentals and reorienting yourself, um, and and just coming back to your plan and your data and your money and your finding the money you need to win. Next slide. And then just very briefly, as a campaign manager, your communications director is going to be very important. Your communications director is the person that's going to help you deliver the message of your campaign. And this is much longer section elsewhere, so we're just talking about it for a minute. But as a communications director, as a campaign manager, you want to make sure that your communications director is doing three things. Number one, that your message is inspiring your base, right? They're moving people to action. They're firing up your basic supporters. Donald Trump is very good at this, right? Uh, the Democrats are not good at this sometimes, right? And so, you want to inspire your base. I think there's a critique of somebody like Joe Donnelly, where he kind of people feel he kind of attacked his base, trying to win the Trump vote, and it didn't work. You want to inspire your base, right? And then number two, you want to move the middle. You want to move the undecided people. You want to move them off the couch and into your camp. So you want to find what resonates, that fine line of what resonates with your base, inspires them, but also what connects with the people that you got to win over to your side. And depending on your win number, that might include a lot of Republicans, right? Or a lot of first-time voters, or a lot of low turnout voters. And so, but you got to, after inspiring your base, you got to move that middle, to your win number. And sometimes, if you get a Republican to vote for you, that's like two votes, because you're taking a vote away from your opponent and getting your vote to yourself. But you can't ignore your base or alienate your base. But what you can do and want to do is that you want to alienate your opposition. You want them to believe it's not worth voting, that they're defeated, that their camp is in ruins, right? There's no reason to go out and vote or get involved with that campaign. You really want to make sure that they stay home while your base and your undecideds move into your camp. So you want to find out how you can best alienate your opposition and hold them back instead of having them unleashed upon you. And a lot of that kind of has to do with national trends, right? And where we are at in the national scene. But sometimes this is just a matter of you're out working hard, and your opponent is taking you for granted, or your opponent isn't serious, or it's too stuck in old ways to do something new. So, you want to find ways to alienate your opposition. And I hate to say this, one of our most effective campaigns in 2018 ran for major trustees race in Marion County. And we found out a couple of things. One is that this is in the primary, that they had not negotiated their insurance rates in over 10 years. That means for 10 years they never tried to get lower insurance rates, and that can be very expensive for property casualty insurance and healthcare. And so we use that message like, why isn't our trustee, why are they wasting our tax money and not looking at lowering this massive number for insurance? And we knew why, because they were corrupt. That they were, somebody was taking advantage of that. Uh, and they also gave themselves a $20,000 pay raise the year before. And so the meanest mailer I ever put together was calling this woman out for taking a huge pay raise while not negotiating insurance raise. And it was effective. And we pulled off a big campaign and won. And inspiring your base. Just another quick story. Jared Evans, his opponent was being supported by Micah Beckwith, and nobody really knew who Micah Beckwith was. And so I made a campaign flyer up, and we mailed to just our base that our opponent was being supported by Micah Beckwith, and it worked very well. Now, there's a certain radio host who lives in that precinct or lives in that district. He's a very conservative talk show host who got our message about Micah Beckwith. And on election day, we actually ran into him, Jason Hammer, if you know him, and we got into a huge fight. I called him out for being a Micah Beckwith lover and a book banner, and that was like at 7 o'clock in election morning. But that's how we inspired our base. That one was like, here is a proud Democrat being attacked by Micah Beckwith's henchmen, and I think that worked. And so I'm going to say I ran the first ever negative mailer against Micah Beckwith. Next slide, please. And then just your field organizer, and get us in the whole other 3 hour, 4 hour, 10 hour conversation. But in 1 minute, if anything, as a field organizer, there's 3 things that you want to do to make sure that you're touching every voter. One is in the precincts, so you want to make sure that in the precincts, door by door, you're reaching out to every voter, right? Neighborhood by neighborhood in a very systematic way. They're going to get a door knock and a door hanger, maybe 2 or 3 of them. But we're going to talk to every neighbor personally, every likely voter personally, and then as you get further in the campaign, hopefully less likely voters. But you also want to make sure that you can reach your voters through relationships. So you want to be able to reach your voters through friends and families, other volunteers, right? You want to be able to have their closest friends and family reach out to them. And like on Tiffany Stoner's campaign, I talked to several people who I thought knew more about politics who weren't following the race, and got them to vote for Tiffany. So, if they get a door knock, that's one thing. But if a family member or a friend reaches out to them, you're going to get them to vote at a higher level. And then I think also you want to think about how you can reach a voter through issues that they care about. Are they a union member? Are they parents? Are they senior citizens? Are they farmers, environmentalists, first-time voters? Right? You want to be able to reach a voter out through some of their demographics, or through some of their interests or religion. So I think as a field director, you want to be able to reach out to people through door knocking, through relationships, and then through shared and common interests. And again, this is a whole other seminar, but I'll keep it moving. But for communications director and field director, these are important things that as a campaign manager, you really want to make sure you nail down, because that's how you're going to win. Good message, good field. Next slide, please. And then lastly, and this will go very quick. As a campaign manager, you want to uphold the vision and vibe of your campaign. You want your. I've been on, been on some amazing campaigns, and been on some weird campaigns. You don't want to be on a weird campaign. You want your campaign to be organized, positive, future focused, positive vibe, positive vision. And so, your last goal as a campaign manager is to make sure that your candidate and yourself are doing this for the right reasons, and you're doing it in a healthy way that brings everybody together. Next slide, please. And so, as a campaign manager, to keep this vibe going, I just think you got to be organized. We talked about that. You got to be timely, on time, follow up. You got to be fun, supportive, be well communicated. You want to be efficient, effective. These are all kind of big terms, right? But you want to be always be kind of at the end of a campaign. You want to be ready for the next campaign. There's a mentor of mine says, "One day longer, one day stronger." That's kind of how you want to be, right? Everything you do, you're one day longer, one day stronger than your opponent. And then lastly, I just want to say you want your campaign workspace to be a safe place because you can have some very young people involved, some very old people. You can have people involved in your campaign who aren't there for maybe the best reasons. And so you want your campaign to be a safe place to work for, and really you don't want no creeps, I think is the way I would say it, right? You want to make sure that everybody is a safe place, a safe, harassment-free, positive work environment. And so if you see something that feels off, make sure it's nipped in the bud right away, and get rid of those folks that are causing problems because it's not worth it. There's no volunteer or no staff person who should be allowed to be creep, should be allowed to be abusive or allowed to be harassing, right? You want to be a safe workplace where people feel like they can come, use their time wisely, become better organizers and leaders, and move on to the next step of their life. So again, this is a whole other topic you can spend a lot of time on, but just want to, lastly, just talk about why that's important as a campaign manager. You just want to be a fun, good place to work where things get done and we can pull off the impossible, which is, especially District 4, taking a lot of turf away from Republicans. Next slide, please. So that wraps it up tonight, and want to take questions and feedback and all that. So I think being a campaign manager is a way you can make real change in the world. And sometimes it might take 10, 15, 20 years. I've been in it since the 90s, and it's still unfolding. And I'm still like, it's 8:30, almost 8:30, and I'm coming back from Elkhart, Indiana, back to Indianapolis because of a campaign. So any questions or feedback for tonight?
Yeah, if you have, oh, there we go, right away. What are some common mistakes you see with candidates and their campaigns?
Um, I think there's a lot of common mistakes. One is just not having that win number in place, right? Just not having your data, believing that you can. There's a lot of reasons to run for office, but you need to know if you can win or not, right? And if you can win, or there's any chance that you can win, that's different from running a campaign that just a long shot did, right? So you want to be realistic with yourself. Can I win this race? So I think it all starts there. I see a lot of people make that mistake. Like, I have no shot in hell of winning, but I'm gonna waste a year of my life running for this race, and then when I lose, I'm gonna get mad and quit and leave politics forever. And we need people to stick around for the long term, right? And so that's a common mistake, I'd say. And then also, I just think it's important for your stuff to look good and read good and be professional looking. And there's a lot of people out there that can help you make sure your graphics are good, that your writing is good. That is, I struggle with to be honest, I struggle with typos. And so I know I need 3 or 4 or 5 people to read my stuff or it's gonna have typos. And so, just making sure your stuff looks professional. it's probably worth hiring a graphic designer to design your stuff. One of the tricks I learned is, go to Bernie Sanders' webpage or Elizabeth Warren's webpage or AOC's webpage or Mandani's webpage in New York City, right? Go to where the most progressive slash most forward thinking campaigners are and steal from them, right? Look at their websites. What are they doing that's unique? What's unique in their messaging or in their graphics? I mean, Mandani in New York City, his stuff was pretty creative, right? And Bernie's always top notch. So, I'd say, steal from the best, and learn from the best, and just make sure that and you're honest with yourself whether you can win or not, and if you can't win, is it really worth it to you for running? And if it is, accept that, right? And just learn as much as possible from that experience. Um, and then I have to say also, if your candidate starts doing weird things, and you begin not to trust your candidates, bail. If they don't follow direction, if they don't listen, uh, if you're uncomfortable, bail. I have my sister-in-law works for a very high-level politician as a speechwriter, and she has some stories about working hard and then getting in, and so yeah, so and there's people that you gotta you know you can't get along with, or who are abusive, or who whatever. Don't stand for it. Just exit the campaign. I call this sort of death. I hate to say it because it's a wrong term, but death marches. If your campaign's a death march, get out. It's not worth it, and you're just going to hurt yourself and hurt others and waste a lot of time.
I want to. I'll echo that. I have seen campaigns where the candidate turned weird. Um, Guy ran against Donnelly in 2008. That campaign just flew off the rails. A, not in a bad way, not in a way where he was abusive, but rather he just became kooky. And the campaign manager left, and it was left to a college kid to finish out the campaign. That once the candidate loses faith, it's over.
Yeah, and I've been on some union campaigns that we waste. I was trying to organize a union in Missouri back in 2003, and it turns out that Rush Limbaugh's brother is the Chief Justice of the Missouri Supreme Court, and we're organizing court workers, and we're just getting the hell beat out of us. And so it was like for 4 months we were just like we're stuck in this awful campaign. So I'd say just yeah, if you're getting killed out there and it's not fun and you're losing, it's okay to bail, and especially if your candidate isn't the person you thought they're supposed to be.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is that good writers borrow, great writers steal. So that's always stuck with me. It's you like you said, you've got to learn from people who are good at this. Do we have any other
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, and yeah. So I'm not saying go commit plagiarism, but
Yeah, right.
but yeah, if you want to see what a good website looks like, go look at the best of the best in politics, and that's what a good website looks like.
Yeah. Thematically, how people structure their speeches. I mean, don't steal direct quotes, but look at how they thematically structure a speech. Look at how they use call and response. I mean, these are things that you're not going to learn in speech class in college. These are things that people learn when they do speech writing as a craft. And so you're going to have to pick up on it from learning from them. Do we have any other questions? Because otherwise we're coming up on that 8:30 mark, and I would be happy to let you all go if you don't have any other questions. Okay, not hearing any. I want to thank Mike for a great presentation. I think it was very informative. I think it was very helpful. It's good to get insight from people who have been there and done that. That's been kind of the goal of this series, is to have people who have experience sharing um, their thoughts and their talent with us. And I really appreciate Mike for doing that. Our next campaigning training session will be on Monday, September 8th. So we're going to take a week break. At 7:30, we will be doing communications with a successful candidate from school board in Hendricks County. So I think that's going to be a really good presentation, and I look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you again, Mike and Teresa.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
everyone
you.
taking your time tonight.